Patriots.
Hello.
I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative Christian and common sense point of view. Well, we're going to be looking this week and for the next few weeks at some of the candidates that are seeking statewide elected office. We have elections coming up on May the 16th. So this would be a wonderful episode to share with your fellow Kentuckians to let them know about some of these candidates, because this is stuff you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got some whopper of information for you this week. First of all, we're going to be asking the question this week, has somebody kidnapped the Kentucky Secretary of State? There would be reason to think so, because here we are only 40 days from the election, and this guy is nowhere to be found.
'Cause I wonder where you are, and I wonder what you do.
Yes, I'm wondering where he's at, and I'm wondering what he is doing. Secretary of State Michael Adams has been skipping out of debate forums as he is running for office against, one of the main candidates against him is a guy named Stephen Nipper. He ducked out of debate forums in Fayette County, Breckinridge County, Oldham County. They have these big, what's called Lincoln dinners, where Republicans get together in a county and have a big night, and he just skipped the ones in Grant County and Pendleton County and a bunch of others. So why is that? Well, because there's some serious questions that have been raised that he probably doesn't want to give the answers to. So I'm going to give you some things right now which I bet are about to blow your mind. So we're going to do a little segment right now on Michael Adams called Did You Know? Did you know that Michael Adams, now the Secretary of State of Kentucky, he used to work for a governor of Missouri, but that governor had to step down because he was being charged with criminal corruption and all kinds of other problems. And who was his attorney during all of that? It was Michael Adams. This resigned governor was a Republican, and fellow Republicans were talking about impeaching him and charging him with criminal things. And Michael Adams was running the things for this disgraced governor. One of the Republican lawmakers says this was a criminal enterprise from its inception. And Michael Adams was the one running it. This organization was called a dark money nonprofit company where they would be able to basically do money laundering. It was called the New Missouri Incorporated. And I did a little checking on this organization from this disgraced governor who had all these criminal charges against him. And I looked on this New Missouri Incorporated group, and look what I found. You'll see here that this toppled governor with criminal charges against him, distributing dark money. This organization, New Missouri Incorporated, incorporator is Michael Adams, director Michael Adams, secretary Michael Adams, treasurer Michael Adams. Does this sound like an incredibly corrupt thing to you? Now, does this sound like somebody who's running a fast one to you? Let me give you something else. Did you know that the Kansas City Star newspaper ran an article which placed a huge spotlight on Michael Adams, connecting him to multiple scandals in Missouri with this disgraced out-of-office governor? Did you know that Michael Adams has faced corruption charges, which he had to settle out of court, and then he moved from Missouri to Kentucky? Another opponent for him in the primary said this: Mr. Adams' activities currently appear to be much like the mess he helped create in Missouri, which ended up toppling a governor there. Let me give you something else. Did you know that Michael Adams, who again ran this company with all these corruption charges, criminal charges for this disgraced governor, that this governor's campaign committee has funneled to Michael Adams more than $79,000 to his Washington-based legal firm? Does this sound like somebody that you want to have in office in Kentucky? Does this sound incredibly criminal to you? I'm just asking the question. That's probably the reason why this guy is nowhere to be found, because I found this stuff out, and we got a lot of hard questions for this guy that he probably doesn't want to answer. There's some other reasons why we may not be able to find this guy. Is Republicans want to know why, according to a recent report, that 83 counties in Kentucky now have more registered voters than they do eligible voters. And this is supposedly after Michael Adams cleaned up the voter rolls. Not before. This is after he's been in office for 4 years. And Republicans want to know how this can possibly be, because mathematically, you cannot have more registered voters than eligible voters. Republicans want answers, but they can't seem to find him. And here's the reason why, because it's the Democrats who are actually helping promote this guy. Here you can see, this is something I caught on Facebook, where the Hart County Democratic Party is promoting a meeting with this guy. In a recent interview with Stephen Nipper, who is the primary opponent against Michael Adams to replace him as the Republican nominee, he was doing an interview with the Lexington Herald Leader, the newspaper, and he says the reporter there said these words: "Michael Adams is going to have a really interesting primary race, seeing that he, Adams, is more popular with Democrats than Republicans." Yeah, that might wind up hurting him in the Republican primary. The Democrats really seem to like this guy. Let me give you some of the reasons why. Remember, it was Michael Adams as Secretary of State who partnered with Andy Beshear that allowed during the 2020 election for us to have mail-in ballots, to have no excuse absentee voting, to have expanded early voting for days and days and days. Do you realize Andy Beshear did not have authority to do any of that unless the Secretary of State signed off on it? And so the Kentucky State Legislature actually the following year went and made it illegal to do the things that Michael Adams partnered with Andy Beshear to do in the 2020 election. So that's a lot of Republicans want to know why we had all of these election anomalies and mail-in ballots, that he's the one who partnered with Beshear to make it happen. So yeah, the Democrats really like this guy. So the Republicans have some serious questions about that election, the one back in 2020. Now, what's amazing is that Michael Adams has been fighting tooth and nail in preventing anybody from actually looking into that election, doing any recounts, any checking of what he is doing.
'Cause I wonder where you are, and I wonder what you do.
Because he's been fighting against his fellow Republicans who actually want to look into the elections, that's the reason we have this article from the Kentucky News Sentinel. Embattled Secretary of State Michael Adams has been on a defiant statewide campaign to denounce his fellow Republicans that question election integrity. I don't know about you, but this Republican has some serious unanswered questions about some of our recent elections. And I find it inconceivable that the Secretary of State would be fighting against fellow Republicans who want to look into this and get these questions answered. So this guy is MIA. We can't find him anywhere.
'Cause I wonder where you are, and I wonder what you do.
Now, Republicans are going to have a chance to replace this guy with somebody else. The primary election for the Republicans is going to be on May the 16th. That we see one of the candidates that has a lot of momentum behind him to replace Michael Adams is a man by the name of Stephen Nipper. He's seeking to replace him as the Republican nominee in the general election. If you'd like to learn more about Stephen Nipper, you can visit his website, which is integrityforky.com. And I have a link to that website in the description of this video. I also have a link to the Kansas City Star newspaper and to a ton other of the different sources that I have quoted in this episode. I actually link you to the sources to verify everything. So make sure that you share this video, because these are things that the mainstream media is not talking about. A lot of people in the establishment are trying to hide this information, but I think the Republicans of Kentucky need to know these things. And that's why I hope you watch Patriot Point every week to get this kind of news that you don't get anywhere else. So we're going to be looking at the following weeks at some of the candidates for governor and some of our other statewide elected offices. Make sure you tune in each week. And until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.
I wonder